I'm excited for this. I'm going to share over the worksheet here. So feel free to make a copy. Everyone here and anyone watching the replay will also get a copy of the cheat sheet as well. But this will get you access to all the resources that we have together. So feel free to make a copy right now because this workshop will be um, less of me just talking and more of us working together and having conversations. There's going to be a lot of things like talking about our stories, sharing about that I want us to be able to participate in. And when I look at this room, I see a room full of leaders. So I'd love to see some leadership and making sure that we are, of course, sharing what's comfortable. This is a space, I want this to be a safe space for you to share your story. But I also want to see us be proactive in our discussions. Um, and as we go along too, so the replay will also all also get the replay. There's some people here that are not here. Maybe they'll come later, but they'll also get the replay as well. Um, and yeah, I'm planning to do more of these workshops. So usually these are like workshops I do for people inside of my community already. So if you're not part of the community, would love to have you in there. I'll talk more about more about the community later on, but I do have a few more one-on-one spots. So if you want some of that, then feel free to let me know. But if not, I hope you get a lot of value out of this training. What's up, Lauren? Awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. So, uh, first off, um, would love to know, like in the chat, feel free to use the chat. I'd love to know what is like your experience with content creation because I feel like a lot of, um, I feel like a lot of music teachers, especially in the beginning, we don't really grow off of like content creation, right? So I'd love to hear some people's experience with that. Yeah, rather little, a little bit. Um, what is your experience? What is your relationship with it? Do you like creating content? Do you like being on social media? A little bit hit or miss for Ty. So I want you all to also think about what is going to be your intention for this workshop, right? Is it to have a better relationship with content creation? Is it knowing how to even start? Is it having a strategy for it? What is your what is your intention with this going to be? So I'm going to share a little bit more about like the mindsets and why this is important before we jump into like the into workshopping together. But I did want to mention here that if most of your inquiries are either not your ideal students or students who want the cheapest lessons, or maybe they're non-existent, right? You're looking for more, then what I found, these aren't the only problems, but what I found that the most common problems are is that either one, we're not posting content frequently enough, or maybe we're posting too frequently where our music school content is being drowned out. Maybe we're not posting the right place where your dream students are located. Maybe your content isn't resonating with your dream students and instead it's attracting like a wide range of students instead. Um, all of these problems are things that we are going to focus on, helping you learn how to create content consistently in the right place, but also make sure that it is speaking only to your dream students as well. So what we're going to work on here, we need to create a consistent content strategy. So making sure that we know what content to prioritize in our marketing is really important, but also content creation is a skill, right? Kind of like exactly the way that we've learned music. It's a skill that we got to build up. But we're going to be able to learn how to write content that speaks to the emotional problems and aspirations of your dream students. So that at the end of the day, I want you to be able to attract students who have the internal motivation to want to practice, see you as their dream students because of your high prices, but also ones that really value long-term mentorship, stay with you for years. Um, Wanted to ask a quick question here as well. Like, who I saw everyone's relationship with content creation, like it's sometimes a hit or miss. We're just starting out. We love creating content. My intention for you all is of course, I want to teach you something new, but I want to show you that you all have what it takes to be great content creators already. And I can confidently say that because I'm speaking to a room full of musicians and a room full of creatives. And at the end of the day, creatives, we're here to create. We're here to do content creation. And the same way that we do with our music, the same mindset, the same attitude that we have there, I want you to think about how can I transfer that to content creation as well? How can I start treating my content creation as my art? And we'll talk about that in a little bit with the mindset, but that's my intention for you all to show you all that you have what art, you already have what it takes. You have the skills. It's just about refining it right there. So the first thing with the mindset here is that um, attracting ready to buy dream students. This is what it's this is like this is what it all boils down to. It's based on clear, specific messaging or the specific words that we use in our content creation that speak to their core emotions and beliefs. So we have to ask ourselves the question: how can you use specific words to elicit an emotional response from the reader? Right. And if we think about it for our music as well, what is it about our music that really connects with our audience? Right? What is the difference between a good artist and the artist that you look up to? Is it about their skill level, right? Is it about how good can they sing? How good can they play? Or do you feel like it is what emotion they're bringing through the music? What emotion are they transferring to the audience? Right? And it's the same way with our copy and with our content. We can be great copywriters, but at the end of the day, if we don't share an emotion, if we don't transfer that emotion to our audience, it's not going to resonate as much. Does that make sense to everyone? Sweet, sweet. Because right here, content creation can be simple or as complicated as you want it to be. I choose to make it simple. So as we go through the strategies, there's no right or wrong way to do it. But I like to make it simple for myself, and I like to boil it down to really just two things. And we'll talk about those two things in great detail. But we really just want to talk about the transformation that you provide and talk about your offer. And just like I said before, treat your content creation as your art. So feel free to share your worldview. This should be a documentation of your past, your present, what you want for the future. Treat it like you're writing letters to your past self, and it should tie in your emotions and your belief. So I'd love to hear someone. Feel free to unmute. Like, how do you treat your art? Like, what is your mindset towards your own music that you can transfer over to your content creation as well? Yeah, feel free to just unmute.
You mean like our performance?
Yeah, your music. Like
Yeah,
just
that's so. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
yeah.
Maybe even student testimonials,
Yeah. Well, well,
like videos.
I wanted to ask like the way that you treat your own music, like what's your mindset with that? How are you going to transfer that to your content creation as well?
I'm not. What do you mean? Could
Yeah,
you
yeah.
elaborate?
Okay, we'll have Lauren help out. Feel free to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah, like for me, it's um, like anybody can learn how to sing. That is definitely my something I believe in. And then whether or not you have a voice, that's a different story. But you can learn how to sing and like how to like how the body works and stuff like that. So that's what I bring into my content creation. I bring in specific techniques that I show all my students and practical, tactical things they can feel to start feeling their own bodies.
Yeah, yeah. I know that for me, a lot of the mindset that I have towards writing my own music and producing my own songs, it comes a lot with like staying detached from the outcome. And it's making sure that my music that I make is a reflection of how I'm feeling in the moment. So, same thing applies when I'm creating content for the business. as well, making sure that I write with an energy that is detached from the outcome. I write with an energy that is self-reflectant of me, not being afraid of what other people think. Um, so yeah, so I'm glad that you're showing your students how to do the same as well. Anyone else have any thoughts? How do you treat your own music? What is your mindset and attitude towards that?
Ben, I'll jump in for just a second because I
Yeah.
think when I'm at my best, a word that comes to mind is commitment, and beyond that maybe concentration.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm not at my best and I'm distracted and going in a lot of different directions, even while I'm trying to get something done, but there's this sense of focus and relating to the importance of my own connection with me and a
Yes.
commitment to that.
Yes, yes. Same thing when you're writing content now, Bruce. It's like making sure that you're concentrated, that you are looking within. Same thing. That's what I've learned over this past year is that like when we make that connection between content creation, which is so foreign, which something we have so little experience in, into something that we have dedicated our entire lives to, it'll make the transfer of skills a lot easier. Um, Last thing for the mindset here is that balance is key. So having that balance between quality and quantity, right? Less is more. I like to focus on quality over quantity, but I don't want to focus so much on it that I'm not taking that imperfect action and just posting it out. Your tonality and your voice, find that balance there. We want to be on the balance between polarizing and authoritative, but we also want to be empathetic and really understanding as well to our audience. We want to find the balance on being the guide, right? You don't want to make your content so friendly that people just see you as a friend, but also we want to have that authority side as well, that we know how to lead our audience. And then posting with a purpose, right? We want to move the needle. Every post that we do wants to move the needle closer to the sale, but we also want to stay detached from the sale as well, detached from the outcome. Any questions with the mindset part so far? Perfect, perfect. So in this section, let's do a little bit of workshopping here. So this is what I call the Dream Student Attraction Matrix. Every single time we create our content, we want to tie it back to either the frustrations, the fears, the wants, the aspirations of your dream students. So here's a quick little hack that I do a lot with my clients that I feel like has helped me out a lot. But most oftentimes when who's ever done this like these like market research niche things, like filling out your niche, like we all might have done that before. I want us to really, really focus in on we're not just trying to find a niche here, but we're really trying to find our dream students. And most of the time, our dream students is going to be us in the past. Because if you think about it, a clone of if a clone of yourself came down and it was you when you were younger and they're like, help me get to where you are now, you would literally know the exact steps that it would take to get to where you are right now. So as you fill this out, feel free to think about what your dream student is, but I also encourage you to just think introspectively. So feel free to fill this out. What were your frustrations like when you were learning music? What were your fears of what would happen if these frustrations kept going on? What did you want as a musician? What were your big aspirations? Why was that so important? Feel free. We'll take like 5 minutes to fill this out and we'll share answers with that as well. But as we are going through it, feel free to think about your own self and the stage of your life that you were in, that your students are in as well.
Ben, do you have a channel on Spotify?
Like a profile?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I need to upload
You
more
do?
though.
Oh yeah, I was literally thinking about it the other day.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Enjoy
I'll
the
check it
lo-fi
out.
though. I love
Yeah,
lo-fi.
cool. Cool.
Don't worry about like speed running it or filling in as much as you can. Just really focus on allowing the answers to come to you. And of course, you can finish this anytime after the workshop. Oh my God. That was really loud. Went from lo-fi to that. um, cool. Now that we're awake, let's feel free. I'd love to hear from a handful of people. We could fill out some of these together, but what were some of the frustrations, fears, wants, aspirations that your dream students have? Yeah, go ahead, Ty.
I'll give it a try. So I have frustrations, unpleasant sounding results, feeling lost, information overwhelm, and material moving too fast or too slow with no feedback.
I think I missed one, but that's okay.
They were kind of mixed. So no feedback
Uh,
is one.
Yeah. So some of their fears, wants, aspirations. Feel free to just list one so that
Oh,
we can go through some
sure.
more. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wasted time.
Waste of time. Yeah. And then a couple of these ones.
Let's see, for the wants,
Yeah.
a sense of accomplishment, an aspiration to experience making music.
Uh, awesome, awesome. Yeah, let's keep going. Feel free someone else share and we can add your answers to the board here.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Frustrations like can't hit the high note.
Yeah.
The fear is that they're not good enough. They want more opportunities.
hmm When you say more
And
opportunities, like what does that look like?
like more gigs, more chances to perform.
Cool, cool.
And then aspirations are like the lead role, being
Lead
the
role.
star. Hmm.
Mm. Okay. Really low, like the solo.
Solos, like main character, any of those things.
Gotcha, gotcha. Last one, last one. Someone else feel free to share.
Well, I'll go because some of the same things are going to be themes for a lot of people. Frustrations for me freeing the voice,
hmm
but hitting high notes equally, just different technical frustrations.
hmm
Uh, Getting noticed, not standing out, but on the other side of a fear of standing out too much that would
Ah,
kind of put me in conflict. It's real interesting. Kind of, I was just kind of doing this off of my own
yeah.
memory, and as you
hmm
kind of suggested, a frustration that I didn't notice at the time per se was poor teaching, because I put my hands, or I put my voice and so forth in the hands of star teachers, quote unquote, and they didn't really know how to teach me, so I assumed that was my fault. And
hmm
then the phrase I put under fears was that I'm not one of the gifted ones in quotation
Mm,
marks.
yeah.
So
What
um,
about for wants and aspirations? What do you have
for
there?
once, for once, really, wants and aspirations to be approved of, one singer I like a lot had kind of talked about how all of us singers are cocker spaniels, that we all want to be loved and approved of. And it's so true, and probably all musicians that's true of, but just speaking of singers,
hmm
aspirations were to create an opera or a concert career, to teach in a prestigious place, to probe deeper into music, into the repertory, and have opportunities to present that.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. Yeah. So these are all great like starting places to have there. And we will talk about how do we go deeper into this because um right now these are kind of just like a few words, but questions that we can ask ourselves is how do we how do we describe these frustrations, fears, wants, and aspirations in such a way where it is impossible not to create an image based on the words that you use? So, for example, I have like questions that I could just ask you all. So, um, like sense of accomplishment, what does that look like? What is an example of that? Being able to be approved of, like what are they trying to be approved of, that exactly, like we want to know these details. Of course we only had 5 minutes so I'm not asking it right now, but as we start to probe deeper into this, we want to think, how are we how can we describe these things in such a way where it creates an image that we can see what they're going through and we can feel what they're going through emotionally as well. Like unpleasant sounding results, what does that look like? What's an example of that? How do they feel when they're trying to create a tune but it's sounding unpleasant, right? So as we go through, there's probably lots of different who teaches like a wide range of students. Feel free to just raise your hands. Or who has taught a wide range of students? It's probably a better question, right? Most of us. So um, as we are thinking about who are we going to attract and who is going to be our dream students, chances are our dream students may not be everyone, right? You may feel like you maybe feel like you're in a time of your life where maybe you only want to teach beginners. Maybe you're in a time of your life where you're tired of beginners and you really just want to teach the aspiring professionals, right? Wherever you are at, though, wherever your dream students are are placed, we want to figure out like what stage of their musicianship are they, so that we can speak to that level of musicianship. So I wrote here, they're always, I want to introduce the problem solution cycle. I got this from some other trainings too, but the way that I like to think of it is that there are always problems that our students face. It's really just about like which problems you want to deal with, right? There's poor people problems, there's rich people problems, but it's really about which problem you want to deal with. So I like to think of it, what are the chain of problems that my students need to solve? Like what, and then what stage is my core offer positioned? What stage do I want to be positioned as the leader for? And this is really important because as we start to think about the different stages, like a lot of us like to think beginner, intermediate, advanced, but if we go even deeper about what are the problems that they are trying to solve at each stage, we can really figure out what are the sophisticated keywords that a student in this stage would only know. And this is one of the keys to attracting your dream students. It's using the words that only your dream students would know. So, for example, I'll give us like some good examples here, like starting your musical journey versus continue your musical journey. Right? What connotation does start have? It has like a beginner connotation. It's like it's someone that is hasn't started yet, wants to start. All right, versus continue, you're probably going to attract someone who's already has experience. Your first audition versus your next audition, right? What kind of vibe is like? How do you feel like those differences appear in the students that you might attract? Finish writing your song versus finish writing your album, right? You don't get to the album part before you get to the song part, right? Maybe it's sing higher and longer versus singing higher, longer with more consistency and ease. So here's a little quick hack too, is that consistency and ease, those are usually more sophisticated words that advanced students will use because they're not trying to, they probably know how to sing higher and longer, but doing it more consistently is really what's going to stand them out from good to great. And if we kind of think about like I like to think of like sports as well. Like if we think about like the stars versus like the other players in like basketball, the best ones are just more consistent, right? And same thing translates to our students as well. So as we think about those sophisticated keywords, what might those be? What is popping up for you all right now that only my dream students would know this because they've been through all these other problems before? What comes up for you all? Yeah, feel free to unmute.
Well, this is a little bit hard for me because I do have a wide range and I have specialties that cover the different ranges of levels.
Mm-hmm.
But but if I were to get some more advanced students, what I want to focus on, and what I don't know what the words are going to be, except that very simple words for me, it's just expression.
Mm-hmm.
And creating a beautiful sound at the piano, but also having the kind of coordination and control to be able to affect that expression.
Yeah, expression, control, like those are things that like we work on after we know how to like do basic technique and everything like that, right? Like I feel like a lot of teachers, we use the word technique and theory, and those are things that usually people are learning in the beginning. But if we choose the words that advanced students are learning, then we're going to attract more advanced students because the beginners wouldn't even like process expression.
But I don't know if this is appropriate to the subject, but the problem is that many people think they've got the foundation
mm-hmm.
to be able to have to create the expression that they want. and they don't yet.
Yeah.
They were trained very well, but not adequately. And then the other thing is that they may not, it's the whole thing of you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of people don't know how expressive they actually could be or how much expression could be found in music.
Mhm.
So I don't know how to address that, but I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's,
So
that's part of my specialty.
yeah, awesome. There's always going to be times when we're like, we get students, they think they know, they think they want something, but they probably need something else, right? It happens a lot with with it happens a lot with with me and teachers want to focus on one thing, but we got to work on something else first in order to get there. For you, Albert, make sure that we are using the words that connect back to the dream outcome of what they want. So sometimes teachers use theory or technique. I like to dive deeper and to be like, why does that matter? Like, what is the big aspiration that is leading towards being able to, like, kind of like what you said, Bruce, being approved of? Like, why is that so important for them? Or like, why is it so important for them to have control over their expression? Why is it so important for them to be like that well-rounded pianist? Is it because they want to make a career out of this? Is it because they want to use it to feel happy? Is like their main thing? Do they want to share their own music with other people? Connecting it back to whatever that dream outcome is what's going to determine what words you use for that. That makes sense. Sweet, sweet. So as we think about like that chain of problems, it could be as specific or as detailed as you want it to be. But here's a quick example of it's like a good framework to be able to use to help you kind of think through that process. So you can start off with like one stage. So I'm thinking about a teacher and the stages that a teacher goes through when they are building their studio. The first problem might be like, how do I teach music? Right? Go to music school, go learn from a mentor, right? But now once that problem is solved, what is the next problem that is created because of that solution? So I'm a great teacher now, but how do I teach music online? So now that's the next problem that comes up as a result of the solution. So let's solve that problem. What's the next problem that pops up? I know how to teach online, but how do I get my first 10 students? Okay, I got my first 10 students, but how do I fill up my schedule so I can make this my full-time job? Now this is my full-time job, but time is too busy. How do I keep growing? And then once that's solved, okay, I know how to grow my business, but it's not growing consistently, right? Now it might be I'm growing consistently, but I'm feeling drained teaching all of these students. And now I love my teaching schedule and the money I'm making. How do I maximize my impact and help more students, right? So if we think of like, what are the problems that are created as a result of solving problems, then we can always think about not just where is our dreams, like what exact problem is our dream students facing, but how do I retain students for a long time? It's by continually solving the problems that you are creating with your students, right? So then for me, like this is where I feel like my core story problem really lies. It's like this problem. It's my full-time job now, but my time is too busy. How do I keep growing? And that kind of moves us into what is going to be your core story? Because a lot of times when in our marketing, we not only want students to trust us as teachers, but we want them to like us as people as well. And a huge part of that is by sharing your own story, something that like ChatGPT can't recreate. That's how we stand out. So I want to ask you all, what is your core story? Of course, related to the stage, the problem that your dream student is in. And I use the word core rather than maybe like origin story, because if we think of origin story, that's like our beginnings. But what is going to be your core story that is related to your dream students? What were the frustrations you're experiencing? What were your own fears if the problem kept going on? What solutions did you try that didn't work? How did you find your unique way of solving the problem? How does it feel to experience the transformation? What did it allow you to do that you weren't able to do before? So I'd love to hear. Feel free to someone unmute, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about like, what do you feel like your core story is? Feel free to share that with all of us. And I'll leave the questions up here to kind of guide us. Yeah. Lauren or Ty, either one. Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
So I have been going back and forth about this for a little bit, right? And
Mhm.
so I think I kind of figured it out for me. There was a point when I was ready to quit, many points, right?
Mhm.
And then I kept quitting and then coming back. Someone would bring me back and quitting and someone would bring me back. And I never fully quit. And so I think for me, my core story is like, I'm ready to quit singing. And like, if you're ready to quit singing, I have a way to help you fall in love with your voice again,
Mm.
that type of thing, so that you can just like
Yeah, how are you
accept
feeling
yourself.
in those moments where you're like making the decision, should I quit or should I stick with this? Like, how are you feeling?
It's defeating, your confidence goes, you don't feel like you should be even doing this at all. You
Hmm.
feel like you should just get out and kind of do something else.
Yeah. I feel like if I was
Yeah.
in that position, I'd feel like, man, did I just waste all this time that I like spent my life working towards as
Yeah.
well? Um, so being able to not just share the story, but how you felt in the moment is is how we're going to emotionally connect with our
Got it.
audience right there. It's that feeling of, oh, Lauren's been there before.
Cool.
That's really what's going to hit. Um, so as we think about our core story as well, we want to make sure that we're always inserting that into our marketing and making sure that our audience continually knows us. I know that for me and my mentor, like my coach talks about the same stories over and over and over again. And I remember I met him in person. I was like, you share the same stories over and over again, but every single time I always get value out of it. And that was an important lesson that I had to learn, was that my story is extremely valuable. And if I didn't share anything else other than my story, I feel like I would still inspire and empower a lot of teachers out there. And for you, like, I want to let you know that your story is 100% unique and it's 100% something that you should share out with the world, but also consistently as well. And no matter like how many times you feel like people may get bored of your story, it's always going to be something new, someone new out there that gets inspiration off of it as well. So you can see it in, here's a quick example. Like I inserted like my music major band, and that's like my core story. And why I do all of this is, it was when I was feeling uncertain about my music career as a music major, when I felt like I was really full of my piano studio and I was like, I want to make this my career, but I can't grow anymore. Like how am I supposed to make a living off of this? How am I supposed to sustain this, or else I would have had to be a public school music teacher, which is something I didn't like want to do. So continually bringing that up is extremely important for our for attracting our dream students. Does anyone have any questions about our core story and how to be able to share that? Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, let's go Albert, and then feel free to go after Bruce.
Okay. So Albert's going first, or I am?
Yeah, Albert.
Oh, okay, all right.
Good.
So I don't, again, I'm not sure if this is appropriate to where we're at with the core, but what comes up for me, my one of my core stories of my own journey, if that's what you're asking,
Mhm.
is that I was studying to be a concert pianist and sustained an injury when I was 25 that made it so I could not play piano.
Wow.
And ironically, the only thing I could do was teach, because I tried to go back to school and my problem was so bad and no doctors could help me. They had no idea. They were clueless.
Mhm.
It was very frustrating. But if I tried to go back to school for different subjects and I couldn't write, and there was the stories circulating of Leon Fleischer, who had injured himself so bad that his hand would go like this when he tried to play. So I was so afraid to use my hands. Anyway, it took me 22 years to find a cure. And then I started to develop arthritis. So it's like been one thing after another. But on the other hand, those challenges taught me so much about technique. So it doesn't sound like an inspiring story to people. I mean, to my attitude, I mean, oh God, what an awful story. But the truth of the matter is that I developed in so many different ways, even expressively while I was away from the piano.
Mhm.
So I don't know how to make that an interesting story, but I know that that's my story.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, interesting how you make it an interesting story is just exactly that, like the way that you're doing it right now, just continually sharing it. And you then over time you'll just know what to say. You'll know what points are important, but continually sharing the story will help you practice the art of like storytelling as well.
That's
But
good.
I love that story. Thank you for inspiring us and showing us that
Thanks.
you don't have to be at the piano to learn how to be expressive there. Bruce, feel free.
Actually, I'm not sure how germane this really is now contemplating, but I've studied quite a bit of marketing and copywriting and that kind of thing in some other contexts, and I keep getting the point from people like that that master this that your prospective student, I think it's different for us here in what you're talking about, but that your prospective buyer doesn't really care where you've been or what you've done. They only want to know what's in it for them,
Mhm.
what 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 they can get out of it. So
Yeah.
anything that comes across as, all this experience and like name dropping and stuff like that is
Yeah.
meaningless. But I think what you're talking about is something where you're really trying to just ally with what students are feeling and say, yes, I've been there and I can show you the way, I can show you the map. So
Yeah.
in a sense, that's all I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think like the it's always important to rethinking what is in it for me, like in the reader's point of view. But I feel like there's a new trend going on in our world where if you yeah, it's important to talk about like what is it in it for the student, but nowadays what I'm seeing more people care about is also the person behind that as well, like personal brands. And like we see this trend in not just our industry but like influencers, and the biggest companies are growing because not just because of their great product but because of the people associated with it as well. That's why like YouTubers are having all these big brands and stuff like that, and Mr. Beast is like as like the biggest chocolate like bigger like the biggest chocolate bars in the world is because of the branding that he's able to put on and the persona. So if you really want to stand out of the crowd and attract your dream students, it's not just about saying the right things, but it's about being the right person for them as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Bruce. Any other questions with that? Sweet, sweet. I want to jump into this now. This is a lesson that I learned pretty recently, a few months ago, but I feel like this has really been a key to attracting students who aren't price shopping, attracting students aren't who aren't attracting students who are committed. I was about to say who aren't committed, but this is something called the map of consciousness, and I think it comes from a book called Power of Force. Um, I hope I'm getting that right. But this is like this is an important lesson about fueling our content with the right emotion, because there's a saying that goes like our vibe attracts our tribe. And a lot of times when we're posting out there, sometimes we can fall into that trap of just like really hard selling or really hard promoing, and we wonder why nobody is responding, or the people that are responding are maybe just price shoppers, or maybe just people who are looking to try out a lesson here or there. And maybe that worked in the past, but maybe nowadays it's not worth your time. Maybe nowadays it's your time is better served with a different type of student. And what I often see a lot is teachers writing content and living out of these survival paradigms, these survival feelings right here. So living out of fear, grief, apathy, guilt, shame, when we are living out of those emotions, we're going to attract a different type of student than if we were living out of courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance as well. And the main thing I want us to get out of this is that how we are living is going to translate to what we attract. And You don't have to believe in like vibrations or anything like that. But this is something that I just don't have an explanation for other than I see it working in my life. That's literally it. Like when I was like, let's just do a little bit of an example here. So a teacher living out of shame versus courage, how might they show up in their marketing? How might they show up to their audience? Feel free to unmute. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Well, I'll talk a little bit since nobody else is, but I can absolutely relate to this, and it's so similar to the desperate salesman that
Mm-hmm.
approaches, you wouldn't want to buy anything from me today, would you? And you're not going to be in a mode that attracts the energy that you want to teach, and you might succeed in getting some bottom of the barrel students because you're willing to take them for bottom dollar and to do your best with them and so forth, but it's not going to lead to anything that's a growing dynamic.
Mm.
And yeah, so I mean, it's a whole different thing if you really feel like you're coming from a solid place and have something wonderful to offer. People pick up on that vibe. I think that's really,
Yeah.
that is universally true.
Awesome. Anyone else? Yeah, yeah. Feel free, Ty.
So something, and this is something that I've struggled with in past marketing, is there was a sense of, I'm going to say shame or imposter syndrome. So I tried to market myself as overly confident
Mm-hmm.
and the perfect solution instead of, just coming across as my imperfect self. So that shame was hidden in buzzwords and all kinds of things that, I don't even know if at that time I could deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've kind of become more my authentic self, and I can be much more courageous that way. So,
Yes, yes. Like I wanted to throw in this question for anyone else, but what does being a courageous music teacher mean to you? Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like giving hope to your students, being their confidence when they don't have any, um, giving them tools that they can practice in real time so they don't feel like it's so outside of them in a way.
Yeah,
And then just being there for them in a way that, like, if they mess up or something, you're right there. Or, just showing up for your students, like recitals or whatever it is, and being there to support them however they need.
I love it. Yeah, it
Yeah.
can mean a lot of things for all of us. And it's all very, very valid right there. And the 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 first thing is like if we want to attract students out of courage, or if we want to attract courageous students, then we want to live a life out of courage as well. And that's being able to do the things that you know you need to do, even when you feel scared of doing that, allowing yourself to make those mistakes, allowing yourself these opportunities that stretch yourself, right? And see some questions that we can ask ourselves about how do we differentiate students acting out of courage versus shame. This asking these questions will allow you to guide the words that you use to make sure that you're attracting your dream students. So some of these questions we can ask ourselves: how does a courageous student versus a student acting out of shame show up in their lessons? How might they have a certain attitude towards their performances? How might they show up in their own practice when they're by themselves in their room? What is the internal dialogue when they're making important decisions, right? Like, how does one go about finding the right music teacher versus the other? How do they react when they hear high prices? How do they respond when negative feelings and problems come up, like imposter syndrome? Right. So feel free to answer any of these questions. What comes to mind when you're thinking about a student acting out of courage versus maybe shame or fear?
I'll just jump in for a sec because I'll be quick. I think a willingness to take chances,
Hmm.
a willingness to make a bad sound and be okay with it rather than embarrassed or flustered or kind of holding back their energy for fear of that.
Hmm. Yeah. So right there, it's like the little nuances that go involved with that. Like if your marketing is constantly shaming your audience, like feeling embarrassed, like it's gonna make them feel shameful, right? If your content makes them feel shameful, you're gonna attract shameful students. But if your content was about empowerment, courage, if it was about, hey, you know you have so much more potential, like what are you gonna do to reach that? Like that is all about courage, the language that we use there. Anyone else got another example for these, another answer from these questions? Just want to say, what's up, Shirley? Yeah, did you want to share?
Oh, I
There
I
we
was
go.
muted. Thank you. Yeah, I had it's something I do on the first lesson with kids,
Mhm.
especially kids, but adults too. Um, I have them do an improvisation on the black keys. These are total beginners.
Yeah.
That like tells me tons of stuff about them. If they're willing to just take a chance and make sounds,
Yeah.
or if they're just too, and adults especially, because most adults who are beginners just are terrified of touching the keys.
Mhm.
But I like to do that because, and if they really go for it, then really go with it and want it.
Yep.
And then they just sort of blossom, and those are my best. That's my dream students.
Yes. Yes. I love that. That's exact. So in our content creation, right? What do you feel like you want to talk about more that's going to attract those
Yeah.
courageous students? Like what's an example of that?
Well, um, because I'm getting ready to have an interview with a parent tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, how can I get this across? And then I thought, well, the first lesson, I can sort of say what we're doing at the first lesson, and then be really, super positive about it. And then is this something your child would like, or is, how do you how do you respond to this or something? And what the parent is saying to me, I think
Mhm.
will tell me, or like, well, I don't know if we're quite ready for that. It's just kind of holding back. So, because I'm trying to figure out how to weed people out.
Mhm.
And then I just thought of this when you're talking about stories, because I've got a lot of courageous stories about my own self and auditioning for things, and just going out and doing it. So I was thinking maybe I could come up with use one example of my own courageous story,
Mhm.
like of auditioning when I hadn't sung for like 10 years, and somebody asked me to audition for this choir, and I thought, man, I can't do this. And I thought, just practice for a week and do it.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, maybe I could somehow weave that. I don't know how to do it yet, but I because
Yeah.
only till today, when you talk about story, I'm like, stories. I've been trying to figure this out for 3 years.
Yeah,
So
just being I love everything you're saying there because it's like the things that we're talking about aren't just translating to marketing content creation, but to your own sales process, right? To your own pedagogy, to your offers, and to your pricing. Like all of these things have to be very congruent within all parts of the business.
right, yeah, because I'm also raising my prices. I've
Mm,
been wrestling with this email for 2 days, and like, okay, what do I really want to make?
yeah. So good
And
segue.
just go for it. Yesterday, I'm like, just go for it
Yeah.
and just see what happens.
I love that. I love that. Very courageous of you.
But
Thank you for
but to
sharing, Shirley.
when I tell the story, but when I'm writing a story, to write it in a really positive way, and how I just went for it. So I would think that would like attract people. They'd be like, yeah, I really want to talk to this woman because she just did it, and I want to do more of that. Is
Yep.
that kind of what you're getting at?
100%, 100%, 100%.
Okay.
Like that, the attitude, the mindset you have, the energy that you share through your content creation, that's what's going to attract and empower like those students to come to you as well. But I'm glad you talked about pricing, because the very next section here is strategic pricing. And although this is a training around like content creation, attracting dream students is like pricing is one of the main ways that we are that can help us be able to do that. So this one will be quick though. One of the simplest ways that you can attract more committed students is by charging a higher price. And while I don't believe paying a lot of money makes a student suddenly become committed, I believe it's about the act of investing in themselves that creates the transformation. So what we want to do is we want to find a balance between charging a high price that of course scares you a little bit because you know you need to level up to charge that value, while also giving your students that instant experience of like, oh shoot, like I'm seeing money get pulled out of my bank account, like I need to make this worth it. That's what creates the urgency necessary to put into action as well. So it's finding that pricing, that balance of pricing where you feel courageous enough to charge that, but also your students feel courageous enough to be able to invest in that price as well. Does that help out, Shirley? I want to make sure that that helps you out as well.
Yeah, it does, because now I am, because yesterday I just wrestling with that. I mean, I had these two figures. I'm going back and forth, back and forth. I'm like, stop it. Stop this.
Mhm.
So that pick the high. What do you really want? Pick your high one.
Yep.
And then, like, that scares me slightly.
Yep.
You know, not like no everybody's gonna bail, but I'm like, ooh, you know. So today, and then see how I feel tomorrow. Like today, how do I
Mhm.
feel? And here you are telling me. So I'm like, all right, you're validating. So charge that little higher bit.
I'm excited
So,
for you. I'm excited. And then
I'll go.
yep. And last thing I said here, like a lot of teachers, they have this, they have hesitations in being able to offer like a big commitment. But I would say like you could still offer like monthly payments, but I would consider offering like an upfront commitment for like new students, especially if you're just trying to make sure that you attract in your dream students, make sure that they're committed. This is what I do with a lot of my clients too. Like sometimes I do weekly payments, monthly payments, but there's an upfront commitment for new clients that come in just to make sure that I get a level of commitment there. But any questions about strategic pricing or attracting students out of courage? Sweet, sweet. As we go down, let's talk about the headlines here. So now actually putting this into practice now, when we are creating headlines, the first thing on our posts, those are going to be the most important parts of the post. And we want our headlines to speak like a dog whistle, right? The specific, sophisticated words that only your dream students would know. What words are those, right? What are the priorities? What are their priorities now based on the stage that they're in? And we always want to connect it back to what we wrote in our dream student matrix as well. But I want to give it an example here. So we can use this diagram here, like now, later, someday, to describe like things that our students may want. So what we want to do is make sure that our headline is always focused in on the now, right? Sometimes we like to talk about things that are in other people's some days, are in our dream students some days, where and we're wondering why we're attracting the wrong students. Maybe we're trying to attract experienced students, but we're talking about learning how to write a song when that's not even their focus. They already know how to write a song, or they already know how to play a song, right? So the main thing with this though is that every single dream student has a different kind of subset of what they're now, later, and some days. One student's goal someday may be someone else's goal now, right? And it's kind of like, so if we think about like a beginner, and uh, we're talking about learning a song, that might be what they're focused on now, just learning a song. So the things in our later stages, the things in our someday stages, we don't need to be talking about that, right? If we're talking to someone experienced, maybe their main focus right now is getting consistent gigs. And then later on, maybe they're focused on getting consistent gigs that they actually enjoy. And then maybe someday their focus is like maximizing their audience. So understanding the nuances of what is important for them now versus later versus someday will help you then focus in on, okay, what are the topics I want to talk about that are important now for them. Sometimes if you're trying to attract someone experienced, maybe you want to talk to people who are getting consistent gigs that they enjoy. But if you're just being vague and talking about just getting consistent gigs, you might attract the wrong types of people, right? So these nuances are going to be important for really understanding your dream student. And that's going to be able to be translated here in like these example headlines. So I gave a bit of examples. There's lots of like examples and pieces of content that you could take a look at that from me. But here's an example of like one of my piano posts. And I said, parents who need an activity for their child, right? So it's like not just parents, but parents who need an activity for their child, right? You can go deep. Like I went deeper in with that. But also we can go deeper as well. Maybe I don't want a parent who's needing an activity for their child. Maybe I don't want parents who are competing music versus sports, but maybe I want a parent who's already looking for music. So I might say, hey, parents who need to find the right music teacher for their child. Notice how we go like a lot more specific and a lot more nuance is going to attract parents with a different intention there. Some of these examples here might be like, if for online music teachers who want to stop feeling burnt out teaching 40 students a week, right? You don't find that problem, or you don't have that problem unless you've experienced this already. So with my marketing, I've always wanted to make sure that I'm attracting my dream client and speaking to the specificity of them as well. So for you all, I'd love to open up to discussion, like for your dream student, what do you feel like the now is that you need to talk about in your marketing? What is their main priority that they are focused on now? Yeah, go ahead, Albert.
I'll take a stab at this. And I'll try to focus. For the dream student, I want somebody who I pretty much have already said it, who wants to learn how to play more beautifully, more expressively, who my great love is classical music, so that's my focus. It could include somebody who is who's an advanced, well, it would be an advanced student, and it would include somebody who wants to, enter competitions, make a career. It could include that. My problem is that I don't feel that I have the typical credentials that are going to attract that to me. So I've settled for students who are amateurs and, literally amateurs, which means lovers of music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have any comment for that?
So are you saying you want to attract these higher level students who want to focus on expression, but you're feeling like you're settling down for like students who are kind of like a few steps behind that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say you the first thing that comes to mind is like you do you, Albert. Like if you want those types of students, then we put it out there. And of course, like this training is about like how to attract your dream students, but at the end of the day, we cannot control who comes to us or not. And just allowing yourself to bring out your full self, talk about the things that you want to talk about, will attract the people that will just naturally attract the right people. If you allow yourself to let go of the expectations, you will find that the right people come into you.
Yes, I love this phrase, and I'm trying to follow it. It's called intention without expectation.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hardest thing.
It is. But it's about that, it's about the trust. It's about the faith that you have in yourself and in your audience as well, that the right people will come to you. You know, some days there's lots of times when I'll write out a post and I'll wonder, like, is anyone even reading? Is anyone even listening out there? But I keep going despite that feeling, because I know time and time again, there's always teachers that come to me being like, Ben, like I've been reading your emails, but now is the time to like reach out. Like, I'm like, you've been hiding in the shadows for all this long, but they've been paying attention. People are always paying attention. People might not respond, but that's something that is just like wild to me, that like people are always paying attention um to what you're putting out there, and you never know who's actually paying attention. So all we can really do and control is what we put out there. So I would I would write about the things that you want to write about the things that
That's
past
great.
Albert would find a lot of value in as well.
By the way,
Uh,
it looks like Bruce was reacting to what I was saying. I was curious to see if Bruce wanted to say something.
yeah, Bruce, do you want to share anything?
Well, just that I can really identify with that, just having evolved to an older place in teaching where I feel like there's a certain kind of artistic student in the classical world that I would love to work with, but I don't think they would automatically come to me because I haven't done it at the level I think I could teach them to do it. And so, but beyond that, what I'll say, just kind of free associating, is that I'm even attracted beyond that into students of all kinds of singing who want to look for the magic. It's like, where does technique meet spirituality to
Oh yeah,
create magic?
oh
And
Yeah,
I can relate to that with all sorts of different vocal styles, quote unquote.
yeah.
One
So
of my favorite commercial teachers talked, just I just read a quote from her, and she just said, I don't teach style, I teach function. And so it's like function combined with freeing spirit.
yeah. Ah, so
yep.
how to
So
create a style.
so now in your when you're writing your content, Bruce, like, questions you could ask yourself is, can you acknowledge the things that they already have accomplished, right? Can you meet them where they're at and acknowledge the things that they're still looking for? So lots of times I see teachers like, hey, I can help you with your technique, your theory, help you sing better. But if we can say like, hey, I know you know how to sing well, I know you know how to sing the repertoire that you already want to sing, but why, how come you're not getting the roles that you're not getting? How come it's not translating to auditions? How come it's not translating to your audience, right? And it might, and then you are there now to reveal it might be because of the spirituality component of it, right? Are you actually emotionally connecting? So are you expressing yourself through the music, not just going through the motions, right? I feel like that was a big point of my musicianship as well, where I started enjoying music a lot more, finding a lot more fulfillment when I realized it's not just about going through the motions. It's about using the music as a tool to channel my feelings. So uh so yeah, to definitely talk about that. um I know we only have like 15 minutes left. I want to make sure we still have Q&A. We will absolutely have Q&A still. But I want to get through this last portion so we can get to the end, because we're on the last one. Sound good, everyone? Final push. Perfect, perfect. So, talking about the transformational content formula now, this is the exact thing I teach to my clients. This is just the strategy on how to make content creation a lot simpler for yourself and giving yourself a system on how to be able to do this consistently. So, I like to break it down into 3 steps when we're creating content. Figuring out what is the purpose of our content, what is the topic, and then how do we create it. So when teachers are starting to create content for the studios, I often get these questions like, what should I post? Where should I post? How often? Like, I keep posting, but why does no one inquire? And to that, I always tie it back to the goal of why we're doing all of this. And the goal here of content creation is really just to create enough trust, connection, and curiosity with your audience so that they engage in a conversation with you through Facebook Messenger. So that's key, though, that my content is not designed to sell, but it's just designed to help the teacher move to the next step. And that next step may be reaching out to you on Facebook Messenger. It may be booking a call with you. But I feel like a lot of teachers are too focused on like trying to get our content to sell, trying to get our content to just get someone to buy right away, which can be done, but that requires a lot of time and building and nurturing our audience to get them to that point where they trust us enough. But if we focus on just helping our students get to the next step, which may be just reaching out to you, it makes the content creation process a whole lot simpler there. And just like our own music, just like our own practice, consistency is key. So what I like to do is I like to just create a weekly standard of how many times I'm going to post and just stick with it. The more specific that you get with your content, the less engagement that you may get as well. But I don't want you to be discouraged by that if you feel like you're not getting as much engagement, because as you get less engagement, you'll get more of the right quality of people that come to you. And then here's a little thing. I always like to focus on consistency over intensity. So just a quick preview of what my content creation looks like right now. This is kind of like what my content planner looks like. I personally post like 2 to 3 new pieces of content on my Facebook profile every single week. And that is combined with like just some copy around the new YouTube videos that I'm doing, just like promoting the new YouTube videos, but then also any like action posts that I do, like the workshop announcement, right? I had to write a post for that. But everything else, this is the thing, like this is the kind of like the luxury of what I get to do, because I've written content for so much, but most of my content is like recycled. It's like content that I've created maybe like months ago that I'll maybe repost a few months later. And a lot of these posts right here, here's like my content library. The last time I posted this was November. So as you start to build your content creation library, you can start to repost this later on. So like if I were to repost this now from November to March, that's like 5 months. So I'd say 5 months is a, a reasonable amount of time to like repost a post. So for yourself, make sure that you are focusing on consistency rather than intensity, because once you get that down, then you can really focus on the quality of the content as well. But in this beginning stage, I would very like highly suggest just staying focused on creating a number on how many times can you post and just stick with it, and just show yourself that you can be able to be able to stick with that. So I'll go through some of these purposes real quick, and I'll give you some examples as well. You can take a look at examples down here, but figuring out what's the purpose of the content. And again, it's not limited to these 4 things, but these are the 4 things that I personally that have worked for me, with just sticking to them and also moving the needle closer to the sale as well. So you could post things about your student success, be able to create posts that show the transformation as well. So here's a screenshot of like, here's an example of like some client wins right there, showing the social proof. You could also do that with your students if like you share a video of them, or share before and after video. That would be a great way to show like student success. I like to create value posts as well. So teach how the transformation has happened. The goal of these is to teach a topic that they would get a lot of value from. But a lot of these show up for me via like the YouTube videos. So if you follow my YouTube, I'm posting like 2 videos a week for in my YouTube channel, but I also create posts to kind of promo that, to share that with my audience as well. There's belief posts as well. So talk about your beliefs behind the transformation as well. So we want to, I would say like for these ones, these are the main posts that allow us to help qualify and disqualify your prospects. So surely when you're talking about your stories that you want to share with your students and your audience, like this might be the perfect place to put that in, right? Here's an example of me sharing my core story, right? And what this is going to help me do is going to help me attract teachers who have very similar core stories as well, and that we can connect on our shared problems. We can connect on our shared goals. Is this making sense to everyone so far? I know I'm kind of going a bit quick with this. Awesome. We can go back for Q&A for sure. But the last one is action posts here. And these are the typical like promoting posts, selling posts that we have, but I like to think of it as inviting others to join the transformation. I like to use something called like permission-based marketing. So the goal is to ask for permission to carry conversation over Messenger. So you'll see right here, here's an example of one of the action posts that I did when I was growing my piano studio that did really, really well. Even though the post isn't like super quality, like this just goes to show that you could do like, you don't have to be the best at content creation to get a good result from it as well. But why I feel like this post really worked was, one, I made sure that it called out parents, right? People with kids, but also these things as well. And I wrote this during COVID, as you can see during the date. But these checkpoints here were like the main reasons why I was not only like getting a lot of comments, but I think I got like 10 students from this post, and 10 students that are really aligned with me as well. It's because these parents that I started working with, they cared about these things for their child as well. So they're almost like criteria that I had for the people that I wanted to attract. And usually what I like to do is like I ask for permission. So if that interests you, comment yes below and I'll send a message explaining the details. So I won't like reach out to them right away, but I'll wait till they comment yes, and then they're giving me permission to reach out to them. I wanted to clarify here, there's really like two types of action posts that you can take a look at, and I like to call them direct action posts and indirect action posts, where one is getting the prospect to comment on the post if they directly want more info with working with you. So it's kind of like a who wants to work with me type of post, versus an indirect action post, maybe getting a prospect to comment on the post if they want a freebie from you, right? So it may be something where they aren't necessarily asking to work with you directly, but they are interested in your offer. They're interested somewhat in what you have to teach. So a good way it's almost like a feeler, right? To get a feeler of your audience out there is by giving a resource out. It's by asking people if they want something free from you. And you'll attract people who not necessarily might like want to work with you right away, but it'll give you a good idea that they are interested in your offer. So you can reach out to them, start a conversation, see how you can help them, see if you could provide them other resources as well. And those are just different types of purposes that you could have with your content creation as well. Let's slow down just a little bit. Any questions with the purposes or the kind of like the types of content here so far? Perfect.
Hey Ben, this might be actually a separate workshop, but I would love to hear you talk about creating offers.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, creating offers. Yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind then. Sweet. The next thing is like the topics. So it's not limited to all of these, but here are some questions to help prompt you with asking the right, like figuring out the right topics that are specifically going to help build trust with your dream students. You can talk about, hey, what are the 3 biggest problems that your students face that are stopping them from reaching their goals? What are some of the false beliefs that your students are facing? Like, how are you different? Right? Can you handle future objections like price, time, right? Maybe you want to attract students who want to invest more. So you might be talking about your belief on investing in a great teacher rather than investing in someone that is just the cheapest. What is the old way that the industry is telling them that goes against what you believe as well? What is a problem that you, and then this, I feel like a lot of my content comes from this and stems from this. And Lauren, like Ty and Sharon, like you probably see me do this a lot, but it's like I write content based on what problem am I solving most frequently with my current clients as well. And that could honestly be just the fuel that drives your content creation week by week. Just ask yourself, what is the problem? What's kind of like a problem that I was solving for a student this week? How can I write a post about that? right? And that will always be able to fuel your content creation. You'll constantly talking about important things because at the end of the day, your content needs to be not valuable, not just for your audience, but for your current students, your paid students. If you can get your content so good that it helps your paid students, your people following your free content is going to buy eventually, is going to want to work with you eventually. So lastly here, how do you create your content? So it's just a step-by-step thing here. It's really just stay organized, batch your content. I recommend sitting down in the beginning, sitting down an hour per week, and you can use our content starter pack to write your weekly content. So this is one of the resources that you all get as being a part of this workshop as well. And this is, I want to make sure that you can get access to this. Hold on. This link leads to someone else, leads to the actual client course. So for you all that made a copy of this, I am going to put this in the chat as well. Yeah, this will be in the email again, but this is the content starter pack. So it's a great way to help you just get off your feet and start creating content is by emulating content. So there's a fine line here. I don't want you copying the content, right? But we want to emulate it. See how the content is structured. Feel free to take some of these posts and reword them for your dream students, right? This is a post that worked really well for me. It's worked really well for some other teachers as well. Feel free to take that, change the words around and try it for yourself. But with the pursuit of just starting to be consistent with our content, I want you to have a stepping stool to bounce off of. So there's lots of posts here. There's this content swipe file, which is a little bit more recent than the screenshots, but there are going to be a list of all of these different types of contents here. You can be able to pick one and to see my content here. But this should give you inspiration and allow you to start creating consistent content very, very easily as well. There's some other things in here like plug and play templates. They're kind of like who's ever done like Mad Libs before? Yeah, where you kind of like fill in the blanks. This is designed to be just like that, to help you create content really easily. And then I also gave you a copy of the content dashboard, which can help be able to just organize your content, be able to help put everything that you have here, kind of like our ideal, like our dream student matrix here. You can put that in here, but this will help you just house your content, make it a lot easier to just stay consistent with it. Kind of like your own practice journal. But also there's like another example, another resource here, content writing planner. If you just want a place to write out your content, that's another resource for you as well. But I don't think I have to go into this because it's pretty simple and explanatory, but at the end of the day, do what works for you and practice your art of content creation the way that you like to practice your own music. Right. Like, again, it's something that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but do the things that already work for you. And they will be able to translate here a lot easier. So lastly, any questions around the last section that we went on with like creating content, kind of coming up with the topics or the purpose of it? Sweet, sweet. First off, thank you all for being here. This is a really, really fun 90 minutes. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. We can feel free to open this up to Q&A for about like 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. But I just wanted to say thank you so much. If you, again, we're doing these workshops. I'm probably going to do these workshops every month because these are like for Lauren, Ty, Sharon, like you all get a part of this as being a part of the community. But if anyone wanted just more info about what the community looks like, if you wanted to be able to join, I do have a few one-on-one spots left. So just reach out to me if you want to like book a call, see if or how it can help. But I'd love to hear either your biggest takeaways or your questions. Feel free to open it up to everyone here. Yeah, go ahead, Albert.
By the way, I sent a message to Shirley. Now I don't know how to send it generally. So, so anyway, I want to mention something that I hope people won't. Okay, I have to bring up what for me is the elephant in the room, and everybody could possibly hate me for saying this, but this is probably just a reflection of my own negativity that I can't get past. And it's how the whole music, like if we go back 100 years ago or 150 years ago, you live in you live where you live, you get your clients, you're employed by, the king or whatever, and you create your music, and but then recordings came, and then the internet, and now everything is free. And I asked myself, how am I going to inspire anybody to want to be a professional musician when there doesn't seem to be any career besides teaching, which is fine, but I just want to get a reaction to that from anyone.
Yeah, I'd love to
I want
open
to
it up.
I want to get past that negative hurdle.
Yeah, I'd love to open it up to anyone here before I jump in.
Let me jump in for a minute. It's the mechanics are different, and we have the internet, and we have the the fact that people don't buy records anymore, but download tracks off of Spotify or whatever. I'll show my ignorance of how the mechanics of that all work. I think it's always been hard, though, to have an actual career in music. So I'm not sure that it's massively harder now, but I think the model keeps changing in terms of how you can do that. But beyond that, I'll always tell everybody that you do this, first of all, because it feels good to do it, and there's something irreplaceable about it. And if people love it and you get paid for it, it's a bonus. And I don't know, I had a colleague a long time ago. I taught a lot of community college, and he was belaboring the point of, why are we teaching music appreciation in the school? Because these people aren't going to be musicians. And no, they're not. But this is something that's a grace of life and a grace of living. And we are also, in a way, training audience. And that sounds like a condescending sort of a thing. But if we want this dialogue of music and musicians to go on, we just kind of do the best that we can. But everything is so predicated on dollars and cents. One of my students that I'm working with right now, she is very shy. She's very hard to get to even make a sound in her lessons, and she's 28, 29. And her father is saying, why are you doing this? What are you going to do with it? And it's always this thing about, how are you going to go make money out of this? And that's the only reason for doing it. Seems to be a societal thing. I'm getting off on a rant. But I just think there's way more to the dynamic than making money out of it instantly, and that there's value to our souls in terms of what we present.
Sure. It looks like Shirley wanted to say something too.
Yeah, I do. I want to say something because I am one of those people who was determined to be a musician. I mean, I tried so many things. I tried quote unquote regular jobs. Every one I hated. I mean, I would get sick after 4 or 5 years. I'm like, what do I really want to do? I want to be in the arts. I want to be a musician. And so I just practiced the piano and got, for a couple of months. First, I got a church job. I just went from there. I just started calling restaurants that had piano bars and stuff. But I think I do this for my students as they, I start them. They usually stay with me for years, and I have started getting kids gigs when they're in high school in places like nursing homes and places like that. If they really are drawn to that, to show them and their parents, you can actually make some money. You could go through college earning $100 to show up at a nursing home, play a birthday party, and rather than work at McDonald's. And I mean, kids are like, wow, But today's world with the digital, there are so many jobs in music production. I mean, tons of stuff that people can get into that might, give them more, I guess you want to say, stability and financial stability. But most musicians that I know, and I've been doing this a long time, are people who want to do this badly and are not afraid to just do cold calls, cold show ups, whatever you have to do.
Right.
And so I encourage kids. I'm going to start this group of kids who are going to start performing in places, just to give kids a taste of this, and the parents to see this is a career you can do, and it's all about connections. You meet people, you get jobs off of doing jobs, so if you can show up, what I learned early was, if you can show up and you've got a good quote unquote product, they're going to call you back, because so many musicians don't show up. If you can show up and be consistent, it'll really help. And I've got lots of, jobs from parties, but church music's another thing you can go into. It's not super lucrative, but it'll give you a basis to meet people and all this other stuff. So I try to do that. I try to instill that with my kids and their parents. So I see that as part of my job to further, and it's so much, like I said, so much better now than it was, because there were no digital music when I was growing up and doing music. So you still got to be able to I always call it, you got to have that hustle. And I'm a pretty shy person, but if you really want to do it, you just got to put yourself out there. So that's
Thanks
my
for sharing,
rant for
Shirley.
today.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah. Really great question, Albert. And I will speak to the kind of like, I don't know if you feel it too, but sometimes there is like an internal struggle of like, why am I doing this if I'm leading my students to a place where like it's going to be really hard to find a job? Is that how you're feeling? Yeah. I feel like at the end of the day, if we believe in it ourselves, if we believe in the power of music, it is up to our leadership to help guide them to kind of like the life that we've had as a result of music being a part of it. Like, it doesn't have to be like them financially, but getting that transformation that you had, like, I feel like part of leadership is being able to continue to preach the values of music and the importance of music, and maybe getting into music as a career, even when it doesn't feel like, even when it feels like the world is like against us, right? It's continuing to shout into the void when we feel like nobody is listening, which allows you to level up your leadership and allows you to be that person that people will follow. It's still shouting out your truth despite feeling like nobody is there on your side. Like, that is like that is true leadership. Because if you waver that because nobody is listening, then who are we, right? And that's something that I have to carry a lot with my own journey. It's like this belief that music teachers can and should and deserve to be paid a lot, and they deserve to be able to make a six-figure studio like every teacher does deserve. That is like I have to keep that strong, even when there are teachers out there that believe like there's no way that I can be able to make that much, or there's no way that teachers should make that much, especially in society. So we have to remain strong. That's our job as teachers, as advocates for the music and the art. I love it. Anyone else? We only got like a few minutes left, but any last takeaways? I'd love to hear takeaways if you don't got any questions. Any last comments, questions that we got here?
I'll just say this was so generous of you and so inspiring, and it was awesome beyond my expectations, and they were high to begin with.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Shirley, Albert, Bruce, Lauren, Ty, and Matt, and of course Emily towards the end. Appreciate you all for being here. Feel free to be on the lookout. I think I'll be posting more content on my profile. So if you're not friends with me on my profile, then feel free to be friends. You can see my content there. I'm also posting consistent YouTube videos as well. So those are always going to be coming out to make sure that you get a lot of value out of that as well. So
Okay. Definitely want more workshops. Definitely want.
perfect. Yeah, and the offer one, I'll keep that into account as well.
Excellent.
Sweet. I will see you all soon. I'm gonna hang along with Emily here because we have our one-on-one meeting, but I'll see you all soon. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ben.